to White, over to Caruso for the lead! Turn up the 18!
Hello and welcome back to C Red UK, where quite simply it's Chicago Bulls thing. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network. Wherever you're listening, rate, review, subscribe, helps us out and ensure you don't miss another episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the bell, give it a thumbs up and leave some comments down below. I'm Matt and as usual, joined by Neill. How are we doing, Neill?
I think I'm tired and a little bit giddy, but apart from that, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, the same. It's just took us 45 seconds to get round to doing the intro.
Yeah.
Obviously 2 a.m. tip last night, followed by straight into a 14-hour day at work, and now recording this. So not stopped, very tired, and still trying to catch up on everything, I think.
Yeah.
Which will include sleep later on. So last episode went out last week with the Horns over Hoops guys, Dan and Sal. So if you haven't checked that one out, go check it out. And since then we've had 3 games: Raptors, Grizzlies, and the Suns last night. Went as predicted by us.
Mm-hmm.
Win against Raptors, win against Grizzlies, loss against Suns. Obviously, we're not going to go too deep into them. Raptors won, kind of went as expected, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
We got the win, struggled, and then eventually come through. Is it a 6-point win in the end?
Yeah, I think we definitely could see the difference between the old Raptors lineup and the newer Raptors lineup. Yeah. The threat that's normally there with them being that little bit longer, it wasn't quite so much there anymore, and gave us the edge.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about Raptors again in a little bit when we get into our main subject for tonight, so we'll leave it there. Obviously, in that game, Zach did roll his ankle and is set to miss a week to 2 weeks. Obviously, first game he missed was the one against the Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson and the Grizzlies G League team, which, again, went as expected, or not as expected, but how it should have gone.
Absolutely.
Where we eventually blew them out. I mean, I can't remember the exact scoreline, but again, it was level in the third, wasn't it? Was it 53 all or something like that? They got it to in the third, and then Bulls had that little run where Kobe, Ayo, was it Caruso hit threes, and that just kind of turned it again in our favour, and we sort of didn't look back after that. One thing that annoyed me out of it was the fact that we left the starters in for so long.
Yes, definitely. They should have been rested. Billy doesn't like to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we did eventually see the likes of Terry Taylor, Julian Phillips coming in, but I think they got about 3 minutes, 2 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
And look, we were call it 30 points up. If that lead had dropped down to 15 in garbage time, nobody's going to say anything because you took your starters out. Do you know what I mean? And especially when you're going to play Kobe 40 minutes the next night on the start of a long road trip. Do you know what I mean? It's just the one thing that annoys me with Billy is that, when are we ever going to see the likes of Julian Phillips if we're not going to see him in a game like that? Because he doesn't trust him in a game like last night. He's not going to put him in a game where we can afford to let the lead slip. I mean, Bulls fans would have probably said, "Oh, you let the lead slip. Ooh, they're not good enough." Blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, it was against Grizzlies G League team.
Yeah.
So
the final score, by the way, was 125-96, so a 29-point win.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I say, even if you'd have lost 10 points off that by playing Julian Phillips for a bit longer, Terry Taylor for a bit longer, it just gives these guys a chance to rest.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, on to last night. Like I say, 2 a.m. tip against Suns, and it was going well.
It was going really well. It was really enjoyable. The Bulls couldn't miss, and it was exciting stuff.
Yeah, obviously Suns come in on the back of a second of a back-to-back.
Yeah.
after beating, I believe it was Portland the night before, possibly
Mhm.
something like that. Anyway, and it was
Sounds about right.
pretty much a nothing game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously I put a tweet out which you corrected me on about it was some of the best basketball we've played all year. I missed best, unfortunately. And that's how it felt.
I've got your back. I'm here for you. I've got your back. I'm here to mind you. Don't worry.
You know, that was how it felt in the first half, didn't it? That it was some of the best basketball we've played all year.
Yeah, it was.
You know,
It was really
was
enjoyable.
having 3-point parties, all sorts. It was just good to watch. And then the current trend is the third quarter collapse.
Yeah. And
we
the
was
worst
up,
thing about it was I even said it at halftime. I said, well, once we can weather the storm of the third quarter collapse, we'll be okay. And the third quarter collapse came and we didn't weather it.
yeah, I mean, we were, what, 23 points up?
Yeah.
And obviously eventually we lost by 2. Was it 115, 113?
113, yeah.
You know, and it was a tough one to take because it was there for the win. You know,
Very
like I
much.
say, Suns was struggling. I mean, the way we dealt with Booker and Beal, can't fault it. But we let KD take over, and he ends up going for what, 40, 42 points, whatever it was. And I mean, I saw a stat from, I think it was Cody Westerland before, where up until that Caruso fourth foul, KD was pretty much non-existent. You know, we saw Kobe constantly blowing by him with his little hezzies and stuff like that. And the one constant through the game, which it's not to blame, but it certainly assisted, was the poor refereeing. And I said it from the first period right through. You know, the fact that these ticky-tack fouls that they were giving to Durant, when half of the time it was him throwing himself to the floor. And then something had happened down our end or their end, and we wouldn't get the call. And it's something that really irritates me, and it's. I don't think it. I mean, I'm going to mention the name now. Matt Peck, obviously from CHGO, says it all the time. The likes of Kobe have got to earn the rights for these fouls, and that's bollocks. If a foul's a foul, call it. Doesn't matter whether you're a year 1 rookie or a year 20 vet. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to earn the right to have a foul called on you.
No,
or against you.
You shouldn't have to earn the right.
No, yeah, you know,
I
and
would
then,
say.
But then it's the fact that these superstar calls, a lot of them aren't even fouls, or they're nowhere near as bad as the fouls that are getting done on somebody like Kobe, who, you know, is going to the rim and he gets, you know, fouled, and it doesn't get called. So, you know, that's not a dig at Peck, because I know he's just basically saying what everyone else says. Do you know what I mean? It's just he's the one that's really highlighted it lately.
That's the sad thing is it is the case around the NBA and has been for a very long time that the superstars get the calls and they've earned the calls, or whatever way you want to put it. But it shouldn't be that way. I mean, a foul is a foul. It doesn't matter whether it's LeBron James or whether it's Kevin Durant or whether it's someone down the bottom end of the pack like Dalen Terry. You know, it shouldn't make any difference. A foul is a foul is a foul. And that's the way it should be. But that's not the way these refs are programmed in the NBA. You know it, I know it, and it's a sad fact.
I mean, obviously, last night it was a lot of ticky-tack fouls, and what was standing out to me. I mean, at the end of the game, there was, I think they had 17 free throws, we had 13, something like that. So it did get closer. But I think at one point it was like 10-2 in their favour. And I remember there was that one foul. I think it was P. Will on KD, where P. Will basically just grabbed the ball. KD threw himself on the floor, and it was a foul. And what it was meaning was the likes of P. Will. I mean, he was in foul trouble very early on.
Yeah, he was.
And that changes how you have to guard somebody like KD. Caruso, like I say, got to that fourth foul, and that was it. The game turned.
Yeah.
Because Caruso had to go and sit. And then obviously we had the whole Drummond and Eubanks incident, which was just ridiculous. You know, if Drummond's going to act the big man, at least do it. Don't
Follow through.
pretend, don't pretend you're going to do it and then sit smiling at him. And basically, he let Eubanks get in his head, and that was it. Drummond was pretty much sat for the rest of the game. You know,
And Eubanks turned into a superstar for the rest of the game.
yeah. So,
Certainly for the next like 5 or 10 minutes, anyway.
Yeah, exactly, and that was the change, and obviously as we've just said that in our pre-chat, at that point Billy should have called a timeout.
Mhm.
Can't remember exactly when he did call it, but you sensed it was turning, and it's just like, right, call a timeout, calm everybody down, tell them to just go back to doing what you were doing.
Just diffuse the whole situation.
Yeah, because what we were doing was working, and then all of a sudden, like I say, you just let KD take over. Obviously, going into the fourth, you know, it was they eventually took the lead, and then it was sort of back and forth, wasn't it?
Yeah,
We get that couple of calls overturned. What they challenged, there was the one on Vooch where he was fouled by at least 2 players, yet nothing got given. And then there was the DeMar DeRozan where he gets the bucket, comes down, pulls Grayson Allen down, and they overturn it, wipe out the bucket, which the rule has been explained by, again, Cody Westerland on Twitter as to why. And yeah, all right, they're following the rules.
Yeah.
Doesn't make the call right.
No. Makes the rule wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Certainly in that instance, anyway. I mean, to wipe out the basket when the foul came after the basket, I don't know. It seems a bit of a real grey area. But look, the rules are the rules, I guess. It's hard to argue against it because there's no denying it. DeMar did grab Grayson Allen's arm, but you know, I wish he'd grabbed his nose and pulled him into the floor, to be perfectly honest with you, because I can't stand Grayson Allen. Yeah. But if he was going to foul him, at least do something decent like Vooch did.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, look, the rules are that no matter what happens, if there's an offensive foul, there cannot be a score.
Yeah,
within the same play.
I've sort of watched it over and over again, and I initially thought there was contact from Grayson Allen as they went up, but there wasn't, depending which angle you look at.
Yeah.
Now, I think the reason why DeMar did what he did is because when DeMar landed first, it looks as if Grayson Allen's still going forward momentum, and he's basically going to land on DeMar. And we know what Grayson Allen is. He's a dirty piece of, you know, and it wasn't the first time that DeRozan and Allen had a little bit of, you know, and if I remember correctly, when he was at Bucks, they had something last year where DeRozan pushed him.
They did, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
You know, so there is that little, obviously we know the history with Grayson Allen, but they've got their own little bit of, you know, so I don't blame DeMar for doing it. I think the easiest thing for the refs to have done would have been give the bucket and no foul.
Yeah.
Then it stops all of this. But anyway.
Yep.
Then obviously we get the last plays of the game after KD puts that shot up, gives them the lead. We go down the other end. First inbound is that lob to P. Will, which was a little bit of a shock. Obviously,
it was, and maybe that was what they were going for, was to do something that was less expected.
Yeah, which we've said before. Nobody was expecting that. Probably even P. Will, to be fair. Unfortunately, he was fouled before he even had control. You know, it was like an off-ball foul, loose ball foul, whatever you want to call it. Wasn't it? It was, you know, as he was going up, he was fouled. He didn't have control of the ball, hence why we didn't get any free throws.
Yeah.
Side inbound again, and goes to DeMar, who puts up that off-balance 3 that kind of hits the rim and bounces back out.
In fairness, he almost banked it in. It wasn't a million miles away.
Yeah, and I mean, before we go too much into that, because of what's going around on Twitter at the minute, and obviously as Bulls Nation tend to do, we shouldn't have been in a position where any of that mattered.
No.
That's the big thing that we both said about this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, the foul, the overturn calls, whatever, bullshit. It was throughout the game, but we were weathering the storm up until that third. And what is it with these third quarters where we just go, you know what, let's make a game of it. It's just, so we shouldn't have been in that position.
No, absolutely not.
The foul wouldn't have, they probably wouldn't have even called anything had it been us 10 points up. Do you know what I mean? They'd have probably just said, yeah, wipe it out, whatever. Bulls fans wouldn't care. Same as that last play. Everyone's saying, why aren't we going to Kobe? Obviously, DeMar's put his it's Julia Poe that's put it out on Twitter of DeMar, basically saying if Kobe wants that last shot, he can have it. And people seem to be interpreting that in different ways, as if DeMar's saying it is my last shot, regardless, or and it obviously mentions that Kobe actually changed the play.
Yeah,
or one of the plays.
Yeah, he does.
And that makes you think, was it that lob to P. Will?
Possibly.
Because that wasn't expected. Kobe, to me, he doesn't need the ball in his hands to influence that last play. Because going back to the superstar calls, for me, the reason why we go to DeMar is because DeMar's got history of hitting these late shots. And if he was to move forward and take his little midi like he does, chances are it goes in or he gets fouled.
Yeah.
If Kobe goes forward, does Kobe get fouled? Or does it get called a foul, should I say?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what they're looking at, that's why you go to DeMar. I mean, unless you're going to run a completely different play as they did first time, you don't go to Kobe. That's how I look at it. And yeah, Kobe could possibly have hit a 3-pointer, catch and shoot 3-pointer from there.
Yeah,
he did have a hot hand last night. He got he was 1 assist off a triple double. I think he'd missed 2 of 6 of his 3-point attempts, something like that. So yeah, possibly go to it. But if Kobe's not quite feeling confident at this point to do that, do you really want to put that pressure on him?
I guess, and this is probably what a lot of people are going kind of crazy about on Twitter, where they're shouting for Kobe to take the shot, is it's an unknown entity right now. And I guess it's a case of people saying, look, well, Kobe's earned it now, give it to Kobe. But like you say, if Kobe isn't confident enough, because I don't think he's not confident to take the shot, but if he's not confident enough to say, no, DeMar, I've got this, I don't know how or when we're ever going to finally see it. Because, if you do take that ball out of DeMar's hands as Kobe and miss, you're about to be buried, right? Yeah. You're about to be buried. And it takes a serious pair of rocks and a serious wide pair of shoulders to take that on and say, no, I've got this. And the fact that he'd already kind of done that with the play with P. Will prior, if that was the play that DeMar is referring to, maybe it was like, okay, that one didn't work. DeMar, do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, obviously if that was the play, that's a certain level of confidence from Kobe that you want to see. Is the fact that he go into Billy and say, no, let's do this. I'll control the play rather than be the play.
Yeah.
Whereas DeMar is the play, essentially. Do you know what I mean? Or P. Will in the first instance was the play.
Yeah.
And
I like that. That's Kobe showing more and more of the point guard side of himself.
Yeah.
Than the combi guard or the shooting guard. And he's beginning to show more and more of that, where he is actually beginning to become more of a point guard and more of a captain, more of a commander of this team.
The leader. And I mean, at the end of the day, if DeMar hits that shot, this is a completely different discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Twitter is a completely different place today.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, obviously we'll move on to the main. Unless you've got anything else on that game.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you've pretty much covered everything that we discussed and everything that we'd seen. I mean, I do, I suppose, want to say that, we say we allowed KD to take off. At the end of the day, when you've got a talent like KD who's capable of elevating his game at any given time, I don't think there's really many players in the NBA that can stop him. You might be able to slow him, but I think we did a really good job of stopping the perennials around him. Like, we cut Devin Booker out of the game almost entirely. Bradley Beal, I barely remember him being mentioned throughout the entire game. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, for me, I suppose the two players that stood out from the Suns all night long were KD and Eubanks.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, and that's not to say that Vooch had a bad game, because Vooch had a
No.
pretty solid game. Yeah, he's still missing his threes, which
He didn't he hit one or two? He hit one or two.
I think he hit one, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he was 1 of 5, something like that. But
I can't remember. Yeah.
It is what it is. We kind of had it down as a loss. We could have won it, but yeah. So, main bulk of the episode is, obviously, as the title suggests, is pick a lane. And it's basically come about because other teams are making moves in the East anyway. And Bulls are just been Bulls. Obviously, the moves that we're going to talk about, obviously there's Raptors, as I said earlier, have moved OG Anunoby to Knicks for whatever package that was. Obviously, Siakam last week going to Pacers. So that's Pacers obviously also making a move to, what direction they're going in.
Yeah.
Raptors seem to have decided Scotty Barnes is their guy, and that's who they're going to build around. That's their direction. Whatever the long-term goal is with that, I don't know. And then obviously they were the main moves. Then today there's been a couple more moves within the East. I don't think it's officially confirmed yet, but Terry Rozier to Heat.
Yeah.
For, is it Kyle Lowry and a pick?
Is it 2027
exactly,
or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a move that particularly moves the needle in any sort of way. I think it just shows Heat up a little bit more, ready for a playoff run, which they're always going to do. And then just before we started recording, Bucks have decided to sack Adrian Griffin.
Yeah.
As their head coach, with Doc Rivers' favourite to come in to replace him. And Bucks currently are second in the East. And I can't remember if it's 3 or 3.5 games back from Celtics. As well as just bringing in, obviously, Dame Lillard through the off-season. So you've got all these teams making moves, and like I say, Bulls are just, a secret extension for Billy to start with. And, Bucks are going well. I mean, what are they, 2-3 years removed from champions now?
3, I think, yeah.
They've still got Giannis. They just brought in Dame. All right, they're not quite as dominant as people were expecting. More so defensively. But do you really sack a coach when you're second in the East?
It's certainly a bold move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unless there was disagreements between the likes of Lillard and Antetokounmpo and Griffin, there may have been some sort of beef there.
Superstar.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question they are superstars. They do carry a certain amount of weight, but should they carry that amount of weight that they can oust the coach?
I mean, to be fair, it'd be nice to have one so we could find out ourselves.
Ooh. A superstar or a coach?
Pick a lane. Pick a lane.
Pick a lane. There we go.
So yeah, obviously they're the moves that have been made. Teams making moves. We'll bring it back to Bulls. Now we know the trade rumours surrounding Zach, and at the minute, I think Damar's now starting to enter a mini. And I mean, right, before we get into it too much, the way the season's going, I'm generally, should I say, enjoying watching most Bulls games at the minute, especially without Zach. I think we're playing some of the best basketball without him. I wasn't overly impressed, and I wasn't like underwhelmed or anything when Zach came back. I think he fit in eventually. Once he ramped up a little bit, he fit in quite well, but not to the level of, is a 40 million player. It was just basically there. Obviously, we're currently sitting 9th in the standings. We're not gone anywhere, have we? From last year, we're a place further up than where we finished. Yeah, all right, we could get 8th, we could get 7th, whatever. But we've not gone anywhere. And nothing's changed with this Bulls team for the last 2 or 3 years now. At trade deadline.
Continuity.
Yeah, as I say, it's sort of like picking a lane. And it kind of feels at the minute that Bulls are just sitting on the hard shoulder, waiting for something, and that's where we seem to have been for the last 2 to 3 years now, where we sat there and it's like dashboards flashing up saying oil change needed, this is needed, that's needed, yet all we seem to have done is added go faster stripes and some fake alloy wheels in Tristan Thompson, Pat Bev, Drummond, Dragic, Javon Carter, Torrey Craig. They change the appearance, but they don't change the performance. And that's not a knock on the majority of them players. Tristan Thompson just got a drug ban, by the way.
And had a kid with a mop. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Did you not see that? Yeah. He started screaming at the mop guy because he wanted to come out and mop up under the basket. It was bizarre. He just started screaming and shouting at him and took the mop off him and wouldn't let him mop the floor.
Roid rage,
exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
and so obviously the likes of Drummond, Torrey Craig, I think they've been good additions, but they haven't exactly moved the needle in any way. And obviously we're now in a position where we haven't got a clue what's going on with Zach. We don't know what's going on with Damar. Vooch isn't going to go anywhere as much as most people would want him to. And then you've got players like Caruso that are just, could be gone, could be staying. And like we say, just do something and not go get Kyle Lowry on the buyout market if that's the way it goes. Because that doesn't do anything. That just adds somebody who isn't doing anything in the league at the minute anyway.
Yeah.
And you're just adding a friend for Damar. That's all you'd be doing.
Well, actually, all joking aside, right? You saying that, right? Would you be overly surprised if that's what happens, that they bring in Kyle Lowry in order to influence Damar to stay?
No. I don't want to see it, and I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't want to see it either. But at the same time, it's the kind of thing I'd almost half expect them to do.
Yeah, and I say the whole point of this thing is because we want to see them pick a lane. Tell us if you go in continuity or do something and show us real change. And the way I want them to go now is real change.
Oh yeah, me too.
Do we go down the route of building around Kobe? has he put himself at that level yet where he is the guy we're going to build around? Or is he just a nice little piece that we've got at the minute?
No, I think he's okay. He's maybe not solely a cornerstone player. He may get there. He's certainly showing signs of heading in that direction, but he's not a cornerstone player. But I think with the young players that we have in this team, you could make a cornerstone group and build around them as opposed to building around a singular player.
So it's not quite a full court press question, but if next year we come out and or even after the trade deadline, whatever, whenever it happens to be, we come out and our big three is now going to be Kobe, Vooch, and DeMar. Is that enough to, one, impress you, and two, make you think we've got some here? Or does that have to be broken up as well?
I think it would be pretty much bang on what I'd expect to see. I would prefer to see us hold on to one of the big three and hemorrhage two. Now, I think the most likely one to stay would be Vooch, and it could be DeMar and Zach that goes. And if it ends up then being Vooch, Kobe, and AC is the three that we build around, or Pat, or whoever you want to slide in as that third person, I think I'm okay about that. I think I'm a bit more excited about that than it would be your initial lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of flip where I am with DeMar. I've liked how he's played majority of the season, but do I want to see him come back? Do I want to see him stay for another 2-3 years? If he takes a more team-friendly deal, absolutely. Because I think he is actually, people are saying that he's holding back the likes of Kobe, P. Will, stuff like that. I don't think he is. I think, if anything, this mentoring role or whatever it is that you want to describe as, I think it's working. We've certainly seen it with Kobe, because we've seen Kobe working out with Dribble Too Much with DeMar. And so they've got that little bond. And to be honest, that's where I want to see P. Will this off-season. I want to see P. Will with Dribble Too Much.
I'd like to too. Yeah, definitely.
Because that's the part of his game that if he can get that down, get his handles tighter, some of the handles that Kobe was showing last night against Suns, they were just ridiculous.
Yeah, he looked great. I thought Kobe had a fantastic game from start to finish last night, but his handles are off the charts.
Yeah, and if you could put them handles in P. Will's body and improve his mentality again.
And change his hand lotion.
We wouldn't need to if he improved his handles.
Well,
but
this is true.
Then that could potentially be your core as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The mentor and the mentees. Is that a word?
It is now.
And eventually DeMar will go away, and then you see these young players flourish.
Yeah. Well, see, we talked before about P. Will and how we didn't expect to see a leap out of him. But if we could see growth, then we'd be happier. I think we've seen that this season. I think we've seen a lot of growth in his game. Is there still room for more growth? Absolutely. Do I think it will come? Yeah, I do. And I think it's worth hanging on to P. Will and giving him one more year which may be one more year too much in a lot of people's eyes. I get that. I know that. I understand that. But I think one more year of P. Will, if he takes the off-season to improve his game and tweak his game a little bit more and come back, who's to say that he can't take a bigger leap next year and be more recognizable on the court as one of the top 5 players like Kobe is now? I mean, technically, Kobe done it in his 5th year. So maybe it'll be year 5 for P. Will as well.
Yeah. And obviously going back to DeMar and Zach, For me, if you trade Demar at this point, you have to trade Zach. If you trade Zach, I don't think you necessarily have to trade Demar.
No, I agree with you.
And that, I don't know why that's the way I feel about it. It just kind of feels that moving Demar, solely Demar, isn't the solution.
Yeah.
You have to move both of them. But if you move Zach, what we're seeing at the minute, without Zach, not after Zach, without Zach, all right, it's still not quite a playoff team, but it could have been if we hadn't started the season the way we did.
Right.
And if you have a couple of extra pieces, mainly any bodies, it's just, not D'Angelo Russell.
No. There's a few names that are going around at the moment, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
The right name hasn't come through yet. When the right name does, and if we manage to acquire said right name, I think it will be very uplifting for the fans and for the players.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we've just said, obviously, do something, but at the same time, it's not do something for doing something's sake.
No, it can't just be anything. It has to be the right something.
Yeah. And now this is where I think I asked you about it last week, or said about it to you last week, is we're seeing the media narrative surrounding Zach more than anything.
Yeah.
No trade value. Nobody wants to take on that contract. He's not a max player. He's not blah, blah, blah. He's injury prone and all that. That's not, to me, that's not how it is. That's just the way the media are playing it out. Because majority of the media that are putting him out probably want him to go to Lakers for next to nothing, because it makes Lakers better, and they've not had to completely blow everything up to get Zach there. Now, what I mentioned to you last week is I'm sick of hearing Lakers are going to be interested in him. The Kevin Herter, Harrison Barnes to Kings and all that sort of stuff. If they're not interested in AK, and AK's or Bulls, I think it was Casey Johnson come out, or somebody that way on come out and said Bulls are still fully focused on moving Zach LaVine. That remains their main focus. Well, go out and move him then. You go to these teams and say, right, Zach LaVine for player A, player B, this pick, this pick, this pick. And if they turn and say, no, you go back with another offer. And it doesn't have to be to Lakers. It doesn't have to be to Kings. Sod where Zach wants to go. Do what's right for the team at this point. Whether it's you go to Pistons and say, right, Jaden Ivey, such and such, such and such, such and such. Where it's a deal that you might still lose out on when you look at it initially, but you've done what you said you wanted to do. You've moved Zach. You've been aggressive. You've become, you've got the move that you want, rather than D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, and a 29 first round pick. Because that doesn't do anything.
No.
And that just plays down to Lakers, and so this is what I mean. This is where they need to pick a lane. If you're going to move him, go out and move him.
Yeah.
And if you're going to move Demar because you don't want to re-sign him, go out and move him. Don't wait for these teams, because it's 2 weeks away now, just over 2 weeks away, trade deadline.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of time, really. Because that, this time next week we'll say, no, it's only a week away now. And still nothing might have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously at the minute as well, the rumours are that teams are starting to sniff around Demar. Sixers, Heat prior to this Terry Rozier move, and Knicks. And again, that's them teams going out and being aggressive. And Bulls need to counteract that and say, yeah, you can have Demar. We're quite happy to move on from Demar, but it is going to cost you this.
And I agree with you. However, the Bulls notoriously play their cards incredibly close to their chest, right? And the frustration with that is we don't know whether or not they are or whether they aren't doing these things and just not telling us. And I think that's where that culture needs to change slightly. I mean, I understand that there's this game to play and it's a game of chess and moving your pieces and all that sort of thing. And they're trying to keep their next move concealed all the time so that they have this big surprise and big move. Well, at the moment, we haven't really had one of those big moves for quite some time. So, you know, it's going to have to be one hell of a move by the time that chess piece gets moved on the board. But my point being, I think maybe that culture needs to shift slightly to let the media and the fans in a little bit.
Yeah.
So that we don't feel so isolated from it all and feel like we're talking now that do something. Why is nothing being done? Why aren't you being the aggressor? And they very well might be, but they're not letting us know. And I think by not letting us know, it's damaging and it's losing your people. It's losing your fans. And that needs to shift, I think. You don't have to give the game away, but even just to come out and say, we are aggressively trying to move Zach LaVine. We are actively in contact with numerous teams to get something done with Zach LaVine. That's all they need to say. That's not giving anything away. That's not giving the game away. All that's doing is that's then creating their own narrative and saying, we are trying to do something. We have picked a lane. We just haven't finalized the move yet.
Yeah. And I mean, something else that was, I think, again, could have been Casey Johnson kind of dropped in something last week and it's kind of spiraled, was trying to move Lonzo Ball's contract.
Right.
Adding that to Zach or whatever. And yeah, do it. You know, I'm over feeling sorry for Lonzo now. Yeah, it's horrible what happened to him. Yeah, I hope he can come back and have some sort of a career. Ultimately, I hope he just has a decent, you know, personal life, that he's not in pain and stuff like that. But next year is going to be year 4 Alonso, and we've seen 35 games out of him.
It's crazy. I know it's not his fault, but it's crazy.
Yeah, and I get why Bulls are trying to be nice and support him in his rehab and stuff like that. But that's 20 million that has been held over us now for the last 2 years that we haven't been able to use.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a team out there that is willing to take on that contract and essentially retire Lonzo, let them. That's how I look at it now, because you can't, you know, there's nothing to say that if Lonzo does come back, whether it's next year or halfway through next year, whatever it happens to be, he's not going to be the player he was.
Well, certainly
not straight away. Yeah.
No.
And by that point, his contract's done.
Right. But can I ask you this as well then on that, right? Lonzo Ball, we were craving getting him back for the first 2 years of him being out, more or less. Okay. Which I know we're only up to the 2-year mark now, but for the guts of the time since he's been out, we've been like, oh, Lonzo. And that's faded a little bit. And the reason why it's faded a little bit is because another player has emerged in his position where all of a sudden we're like, well, actually, we're kind of getting a little bit of a Lonzo player in Kobe White now. Okay, he's not quite the same level, but I mean, he's getting there. He's certainly, his distribution has increased immensely. His handles have increased tenfold. He's shooting better. He's not going through so many slumps as he was before. And I think we don't need Lonzo the way we needed him before.
Well, you say that then, that we're not quite seeing Kobe to the level that Lonzo is whatever. When did you ever see Lonzo put up 26 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists?
Well, this is it. Yeah, absolutely.
Hitting 4 of 6 threes. You know it.
Yeah.
So I think And the thing what people seem to forget with Kobe is he is quite solid defensively.
Yeah,
All right, he's not as good as Lonzo was defensively, but he's getting there.
Mhm.
That's the part of his game that if you can improve it to that Lonzo level, you've got a better player than Lonzo.
Mm.
And like you said, that means then we don't need to hang on for Lonzo because
No.
another player that's doing all right at the minute, Ayo.
Yeah.
And you've got these two players on are they on the same amount as what Lonzo is?
As in the two of them together,
Yeah,
probably adds up
because
more or less the same amount.
it's about 20 million in it. I think is it Ayo on 7, Kobe on 13, something like that.
There you go.
So a
There you
couple
go.
of
Yeah.
million in it. Do you know what I mean? Either way. And yeah, all right, yeah, you've got that in two players instead of one, but that gives you more options anyway.
Yeah, you're better off getting that in two players instead of one.
Yeah, because then that
Definitely.
20 million that you've got sitting there with Lonzo could go to getting as a legit 3, a legit 4 to add that level of competition. A third option in down the middle. And again, going back to Zach and being aggressive, if it's not going to be Lonzo's contract that you add in something else just to get the deal that you want. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's, I don't particularly want it to be, but Caruso, Drummond, whatever. Do you know what I mean? If they're an appealing piece to another team, add them in. Just do something that changes what we've got without blowing it up completely and going down the rebuild route. Do you know what I mean? Even if at this point you're just getting in essentially rentals. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, players that are going to be expiring just to get off Zach's contract more than anything.
Yeah.
And it gives you that bit of room in. I mean, without looking, I don't know who's available in the off season free agent wise, but you could possibly bring in 2, maybe even 3 players on the money that Zach's got there to add around this core that could still do a job. And going back to the Raptors where they decided to build around Scotty Barnes, it kind of feels like Bulls tried to build around Zach and they've now realised that's not going to work. And it's basically put us back 3 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, just do something.
Do something. And do something constructive, not just anything.
Yeah.
But do something constructive.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and throw out ridiculous trade ideas because at the end of the day, I don't understand how the salaries work. I don't understand who's available. Do you know what I mean? I can throw out names I'd like to see come to Bulls, but that's obviously not how trades work.
No.
There's plenty of people out there that are putting out trade rumors, trade ideas, whatever. Some ridiculous, some you think, yeah, I'd do that. I mean, I saw one yesterday. It was a 6-team trade. It was just
6-team trade.
Yeah, with Bulls being in the middle of it. I think there was like Lakers, Hawks, I can't remember, Warriors, Bulls. It was just like, how have you even come up with that? And again, it just made Lakers better. Lakers and Warriors got all the decent pieces. Bulls got the
garbage.
Yeah, and like I say, a little over 2 weeks now. Is it 2 weeks on Thursday?
Yeah.
I think it works out 8 p.m. our time, doesn't it? Then on the 8th.
I didn't actually know what time it was actually. So 8 p.m. our time. Okay, very good.
It's either 7 or 8. I can't remember now.
Okay.
Evening anyway for us. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's hurry up and wait again now, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I say, going back to the car on the hard shoulder, it's like we're waiting for recovery at the minute and just find out what we're doing. Which garage are we going to?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you've got anything else on making a change, picking a lane.
I don't really. I suppose the only thing I would throw out there just to make people aware that Brett has done a piece on what he thinks should happen in regards to moves on crageuk.com. Go ahead and check that out and see if you agree or disagree with what he has to say. I'm sure he'd love your feedback one way or the other.
Yeah, I think they were all centered around Zach, weren't they? Obviously, because that was
most of them were Zach-centric trades, yeah.
So yeah, on to predictions for the next couple of games. Obviously, Bulls are on this West Coast trip, and next up we have the Los Angeles Lakers. It is a 3:30 a.m. tip for us here in the UK on Friday morning, which is delightful. Luckily,
I was going to say, are you working the next day? But I know you're not because
luckily I've
Bulls fan over
booked
here.
it off. Luckily I've booked it off, and the Portland game. So yeah, Lakers now they play tonight against Clippers, and LeBron is out with a ankle injury. I think I saw
ankle soreness, wasn't it? I think ankle soreness. I don't know. It's not going to do my fantasy league any good. Let's put it that way.
Ego soreness, more like.
Yeah, probably.
I think how it looks to me is the kind of thinking, right, it's Clippers, scheduled loss. They're better than us. Let them have the win. And we'll get everybody back for Bulls because AD is a game time decision for them as well as what other injuries they've thought of.
Well, let's hope that they are legitimate injuries and they're not just an excuse to rest players, and that these injuries may last for 2 games so they can sit out against us as well.
Yeah, but then it's like I said to you before, I'd rather beat them with LeBron.
No, I agree. I would rather, yeah.
You know, we've done it once already this year,
so
why not do it again? So yeah, predictions for that one then.
Dub. I can never, ever, ever, ever go with Lakers. It's always going to be a dub.
And who knows? We may be leaving Zach there. I think we're meeting him there. He's already in LA, isn't he? Apparently. So why not just leave him there?
Which bench is he going to sit on?
Probably the one next to Lonzo.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, because apparently they're meeting with Lonzo as well, aren't they? For the first time in.
Because he's been rehabbing at home, right?
Yeah. Which all right, fine, fair enough. But you know, you're meant to be a Chicago Bulls player anyway.
In fairness, when you're 2 years rehabbing, at some point you might want to go home. To be honest.
Yeah, but he's meant to be back running and stuff now, so get him down the advocate and to see, you know. Anyway, enough on Lonzo and our lack of balls. Yeah, and after the Lakers, well, yeah, I'll say dub for the Lakers one. After that, we've got Portland on, well, it's Sunday night, and again, it's a 2 a.m. tip Monday morning for us. You've got to say dub in that one, haven't
you? Yeah.
I mean, I think they've had a couple of good games where, like, Scoots kind of turned it on and shown that he can be an NBA player.
It's been a bit of a disappointment, though, hasn't he, by all accounts?
Yeah. But then you're going into a losing team, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it's, I guess, yeah. I mean, what was it last week? They had DeAndre Ayton out because of ice.
Because of ice? I didn't hear this.
Yeah, they couldn't get him to the game because of ice around his house or something.
You got iced in?
Yeah. And apparently they sent reinforcements to try and get him, but they couldn't get to his house either.
Anybody heard of rock salt? No?
I think that's just a bit of LMF, really, like a moral fibre.
Yeah.
If you don't want to play, then you don't want to play. Just make up a better excuse than that.
Yeah. Just harkens back to the Carlos Boozer story where he got his foot caught in a bag in the end of the bag before he played for us at all.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm saying dub in that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think there'll be the games that will be done before we record again. After
So
that, we've
that'll
got
put us, what, a game under 500 if we win both of those. Is that right?
yeah. If we'd have won last night, we'd have been at 500 if we win them both, wouldn't we? Which that's quite depressing, really. And that's what we're aiming for, is to be a 500 team.
Yeah. Baby steps, right? First, you aim to be a 500 team, and then you aim to be an above 500 team.
Yeah.
The sigh says it all.
Just do something, AK. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's sick of it now. Sick of worrying about being a 500 team, and the fact that we've had this team now for 3 years, and that is our goal, is to be a 500 team. That's why I've had enough. Just do something, change something, change anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I say we'll aim to be back next week. After them games, we've got Raptors back at home. You know, so I can't remember what day that's on. Depends when we record, I guess, doesn't it? So yeah, I've got nothing else. Don't know if you have.
No, I don't think so. I'm good to go.
And apologies if we've kind of rambled and been a bit all over the place, but we're both very tired.
Plus, we have had a few technical difficulties with weather.
Yeah.
So we're fighting that as well.
Yeah. So appreciate you for listening and sticking with us. And like I say, we'll be back at some point next week, unless something happens in the meantime. We will drop a pod.
Emergency pod.
Yeah. So yeah, as always, I've been Matt, and you can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And you can find me on Twitter at NeillCRedUK on behalf of both Matt and myself and the Fans First Sports Network. Thanks once again to everyone for tuning in. From us both, do remember, it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever in the world you are. Until next time, see red people and go Bulls.